Certainly a pleasure to see all of you tonight. Happy that each one's been able to come back this evening. Last week we talked about the family in the book of Proverbs and the relationship of husbands and wives. And we left a section kind of uncovered at the end of the lesson. Back in my younger days, I could cram in more and talk faster or something. I don't know. But Proverbs chapter 31 and verses 10 through 31 gives a picture of the ideal wife. And I'd like to go through this passage this evening, this great poem. It's an alphabet of wifely excellence, and each of the verses begins with a different letter going through the Hebrew alphabet. And as I was reworking some of these charts today, I put the Hebrew letter in, and then I ran out of time. So part of the way you get the Hebrew letters, and you can just picture the rest, that they all follow the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet as you go through. And so it was laid out with some artistry just in the way that it's set up as an acrostic. And it gives a number of different virtues for the perfect wife or most excellent wife, and great characters. Of course, I don't know that since it's an ideal that it represents any real person. Just like when I think about that the husband is to love his wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. I know I fall far short of the ideal of a husband that Jesus Christ is, and his perfections and his care for us and his willingness to sacrifice. So I don't expect, there's too many people that would live up to a perfect picture of a wife back in the days of Solomon. But there are many good qualities that are represented by inspiration here that all women can look to as a guide, and young men can look to in trying to see qualities that they would want in a mate if they're thinking of getting married. And then also all of the great qualities of character that are talked about in a virtuous woman, they also apply to a virtuous man. So we all ought to read this like you would read a passage if you were a woman talking about an excellent man or whatever. We expect, and I think the Lord does too, that women would try to apply those same qualities to themselves, whether it's many of the excellent qualities when we were talking about elders and deacons, that those are qualities every Christian ought to have. And these qualities that elders and deacons have, they have to a high degree. Same with these qualities of an excellent woman. They're moral and excellent qualities that every man ought to want to emulate to the best of their ability in their role. So there's lessons here for all of us to look to and to gain. So as we look at the passage, it begins in verse 10 of chapter 31 and runs through verse 31. It says, "A virtuous and excellent wife," and she's a woman of many, many parts and many excellent qualities. "An excellent wife who can find? For her worth is far above jewels." So this excellent woman, the word's basic meaning is strength. And here it's not just physical strength that's talked about, but moral, ethical strength, virtuous, uprightness, good qualities, and she's worthy, she's capable, efficient. All of these things are associated with this word throughout the scriptures. It's used in many different places, this word for strength. A lot of times we read about mighty men or noble men, and this same word is used about maybe even a warrior and the type of warrior that he is. He's full of strength and efficiency. And here it speaks about her great moral worth, talking about this excellent woman and wife. And she is a perfect housewife that's pictured here in the days of Solomon. She's very chaste, and she understands her role as a helpmate for her husband, and helps her husband in every way that she can. We can see when we get down to the end of the song that she's a God-fearing woman. That's the secret of all of her good qualities that she has. She's very economical and wise. She illustrates so many of the principles that you see as you read through the book of Proverbs that a person ought to have. If you marry her, you're going to experience her priceless value that she has. If you find such an excellent wife, is indeed a gift from God, far more valuable than rubies or jewels. And her husband can entrust much to her without any fear because of her moral strength. And she's going to produce. She's going to look out for the good of her family and her husband. It says the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. So her life is oriented towards helping her husband. They're a team, and she recognizes that she has a role to try to help him in the marriage relationship. She has a duty to promote the welfare of her husband and try to help him in life. And he can absolutely trust in her, firmly rely upon her, have complete confidence when he leaves the home that she's in charge and things are going to be taken care of in a responsible way. And he's going to have no lack of gain from his relationship with this excellent woman. The word there for gain is literally the word spoils. There are going to be many rewards that are going to come because of her trustworthiness. So this confidence that he has is going to pay off because she's a good manager of her home and all of the finances of the home. In verse 12, it says she does him good and not evil all the days of her life. So she's constantly promoting her husband's best interest. And since in the marriage relationship we are one flesh and one unit, anything we do to bless our partner also blesses us, and any good or bad, it's going to reflect upon the other. So she is constantly promoting his interest and the family's interest. Whenever he is absent, the home's in good hands. She's consistent in her conduct. This goes on whether things are good or bad. She fulfills those vows, that we make for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, when in sickness and in health. So she's someone that takes care of the finances. She's not a spendthrift the way she's described here, because she's always doing the family good and not hurting the family in the way that she conducts herself all the days of her life. So you can see that she hangs in there to the end. She's very consistent with her principles. She's not bipolar, one way one time, one way the next. Every day she's working in the same manner to have high principles of love and use them. And she works with her hands cheerfully, we're told in verse 13. Has a positive attitude toward her role and her work in life. And we studied in the book of Ecclesiastes about how to enjoy life under the sun. And of course, having a positive attitude towards your work is one of the most important things to having a happy day and a happy life. In verse 13, she looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. So she is out looking for the things necessary to make clothing. Back then, they didn't go to the store and just pick up clothes like we are able to do. But if you really wanted to provide for your family, you had to get the raw materials and actually make the clothing in those days. The modern conveniences we have are amazing. And it just hadn't been really that long since everybody had to live this way. So she's looking for the best wool. She's looking for flax, which is what you would make linen garments out of, and be able to weave those. So she's looking for all the necessary material to clothe her family. She works willingly. She has a delight in the work that she does. She thinks that her work is good, and it's a secret to contentment. It's a secret that Solomon talked about. And she takes great pleasure. She knows this is her responsibility, and she regards idleness as a serious moral defect from what we read throughout the whole poem that is given about this excellent woman. She realizes you have to be a worker and can't be idle for your family to have success and the needs to be provided for. So next, she's described as a merchant ship that brings food from afar. Not only does she get these raw materials to make clothing and make sure her husband and her children are dressed well, but she is taking care to find the best bargains and things when it comes to food. She's like a merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. So merchant ship travels far and wide around the Mediterranean and around the ancient world. She does the same thing, except going from marketplace to marketplace, or to whichever house or farm she can find the best deal, best quality of food, and be able to make some wise decisions. So she's thinking about the things for the home and being able to find the bargains and the quality so that her family's going to have good food on which to eat and to grow and to be healthy. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maids. So she's pictured as rising up before the sun rises in the morning to make sure that everybody's going to be able to start their day with a proper meal. She rises while it's still dark. So her concern for her family gets her out of bed in the morning. Instead of laying around in the bed, she takes care of the needs of her household. She makes sure everybody gets that good foundation of a good breakfast to fuel yourself and get yourself going first thing in the morning. And she doesn't just look out for her husband and her children, but even the maid servants. She has industrious care. So the woman that's pictured here is a woman that is in a successful household and has land and servants and so on that are pictured here. But her care and industriousness is the thing that really stands out as you think about what type of person should each one of us be. We should be diligent. We should, whatever we do it with all of our might. Is what the book of Colossians tells us. She used her business skills to benefit the home. So these women that are pictured here in Proverbs and in the days of Solomon, they weren't just just didn't do housework all day. They were involved in different kinds of business pursuits as well. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. So she is able, with her wisdom and knowledge about property, to be able to go out and ascertain that a certain field is fertile and that it's going to be a good place for them to have a vineyard. And after that examination and consideration of it, this wise woman has resources that she's been able to save through her economy and her work in the home to be able to buy a field. So she's making income at home. The fruit of her hands, the money she's accumulated from skillful management, she's able to pay for the planting of a vineyard. And back in those days, an ideal estate, you had the different animals that you needed to provide for your family. And one part of that was also to have a vineyard to provide grape juice and raisins and all of the pleasures that come from having a vineyard. And she has authority that her husband has entrusted to her because of her wisdom to be able to make real estate investments. I mean, that's quite a trusted individual to be able to go out and do these things. So it shows, like we read about the qualifications for elders, that they're good managers of their household, that they don't micromanage everything. That's not a good manager. A manager knows how to bring out all of the best skills in those that are under their authority so that they can act and contribute in the best way for the home. You have a kind of division of labor in the home. And here the husband can entrust her to make wise decisions with these purchases that need to be made. And in verse 17, she uses again these business skills for the home. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. So she's making herself physically strong from hard work every day, that she is busy and not lazy and idle, but she's constantly undertaking the task that she has to do with vigor. She's tackling difficult tasks required her to, the idea of girding herself with strength or girding her loins with strength, where you'd have to gather up your skirt or whatever and stuff it in your girdle or your belt that you'd wear about your waist so that it wouldn't encumber you to do hard work. And she's girding herself with strength. makes her arms strong by daily labor that she carries out. Certainly no weak woman. And she's capable of this sustained effort every day that needs to be done in taking care of her family and making the clothes and all of the different things that she's engaged in. She's in good physical condition, certainly no weakling, nobody that has to be liberated because of their oppressed situation they're in. In verse 18, she senses that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. So she knows, again, that she's doing what the Lord wills that a good wife should do, and looking out for her family and investing labor in blessing them. So she knows her merchandise that she makes, the clothes that she makes, the things she's able to sell in order to make an income, that is profitable. She's prudent and economical, which leaves her with a surplus to make a profit and to make a gain. And the lamp does not burn out at night. There's plenty of oil to keep it burning. It was a matter of safety in the home to have this like night light going all through the night, just like it did in the tabernacle. It would be that way in people's homes. And she worked so that there was always a sufficient supply for these things. Some have pictured her as working into the night by the light of those lamps to, make extra that was needed for the family or to provide for the future. So, however that might be taken, the lamp does not go out at night. Then in verse 19, making clothes and also helping those that are in need. So we are told in the New Testament to labor with our hands, doing that which is good, so that we might have what we need and also be able to help those that are in need. And she is an example of that. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hands grip the spindle. So she spends, even when maybe she's got downtime from other duties, she's working with the spindle and the distaff to make thread in order to, make the clothing. Take the raw flax and the raw wool, and they would spin it with this. I don't understand exactly how it all worked, but they wind up the thread at the end. And she's using that spindle, that round piece of wood, to wrap the wool around. It was later a spinning wheel that people would use. And the distaff is that which the bunch of flax is tied to, you start with before you're making the thread. So she used that to make linen out of flax and wool, or clothing, make thread, and make sure that she does enough that she can not only take care of her own family, but have extra to be able to help those that are in need. We read about Tabitha or Dorcas in the New Testament, that she had that same ability and quality that's praised by the saints, and are shown to Peter the things she would make for the poor. In verse 20 says, so she extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hand to the needy. So this ideal woman that all want to be is not only providing for her family, but also sympathetic towards those that maybe don't have a husband, that don't have anybody that can help provide for them. And she stretches out the palm of her hand to the poor. So she has a open-handed policy of liberality that's pictured there. Then a different word for the hand is used the second time. She stretches out her hand, which is a word that means power, to the needy. So she's personally involved in aiding those that are in need. And she looks beyond the needs of her family to the needs of those that are in need. And we read about, that widow that looked out for the saints and washed their feet. And that was an excellent one. That was the widow indeed that we all admire. Then in verse 21, she's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all of her household are clothed with scarlet. Let's see, I've got the notes repeated on that one. Somewhere right around in here is where I ran out of time to transfer my notes over here too. So I needed another hour this afternoon to finish these charts up. But I was able to include some of the pictures when I got started on that. So She makes sure that her family is clothed, it says, with scarlet, which is a warm, stately type of clothes. You think about it, that ancient world in which they lived, that, even if it was kind of decent weather, you didn't have the kind of central heat that we've got. You had to have warm clothes and layers of clothes if you were going to stay comfortable. And these scarlet clothes were dyed with, they got it from insects, this particular scarlet that's talked about here, in order to make these clothes of scarlet. And it was warm. It was good for cold weather, and even in a mild climate, you needed that warmer clothes. Of course, it looked a lot nicer than just plain white all the time. To be able to make scarlet clothes, that would be an excellent thing. And then in verse 22, it says she makes coverings for herself, and her clothing again is fine linen and purple. So she looks to the best, not satisfied with the cheapest type of clothing. She's looking for the best material that's going to last the longest and look the best. And there's certainly something to quality. I know that with shoes and with all kinds of things in life. You can buy a good pair of shoes and they'll last maybe longer than 4 or 5 cheap pair of shoes sometimes, right? It works that way. With excellent garments, it's not just to be a show off to buy nice clothes, but many times they're the best made and the best lasting. And so she's one that looks out and gets the fine linen and purple, the costly garments that makes her family presentable and also has good quality to it, which is certainly a wise way to conduct yourself. Her husband is known in the gate when he sits among the elders of the land. Behind every great man, there's usually an excellent woman like this that's helping him to be able to carry out the type of civil duties that he has for the community. In sitting at the gate, that was the place where judgment was made. It'd be the equivalent of having the school board meeting, and the different business of the city that needed to be conducted was conducted in the gate. So he's able to be a local leader because he's got a good woman that helps him to be successful so that he can take on these extra duties of being an elder, not only in these civil matters, but maybe also a religious elder, because he has a good wife that's helping him at home. So this excellent woman is one that causes her husband to be exalted and successful. And it shows again how important it is who you choose to be your wife, that you look for excellent moral virtue in a person and not just outward appearance. But you have to think about what kind of a helper are they going to be to help you be successful in your life in service to the Lord and in your career, and being able to make yourself a success in life. We're told in verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. So it shows further her industriousness, how she gets this surplus money that she can buy land with, and things like that, that she is engaged not only in making clothing, but working with leather, and able to make linen garments and belts or girdles, sashes that she's able to sell in the marketplace in order to make extra money. Again, this woman doesn't let the grass grow under her feet. She's busy making a living and making a life for herself and her husband and her family. The strength and dignity, optimism, ability to teach with kindness, all of these great qualities belong to this excellent woman. Let's see. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. So this ideal wife, again, strength and dignity are the spiritual clothing that she wears. That's more important than those outer garments that were talked about, although she knows how to present herself well and make nice clothes for herself to have a good appearance. More important than that is the qualities that she has on the inside: strength and dignity, moral power and courage, Dignity is a nobility of character that she's clothed her inner person with. And this dignity calls forth honor and respect from other people because she conducts herself in this way. So she lives a life of dignity, and she's got the power of a righteous purpose in the way that she lives. And she's one that reveals it, this character and the type of carriage that she has and the demeanor that she shows to other people. She lives in an honorable, respectful way. It says that she smiles at the future. Oh, how powerful and great is it to be a person that is optimistic in a world so full of negativity and complaining and griping, that you have somebody that's optimistic and smiles at the future with confidence because they know who they believe in and what the future holds for those that are God-fearing and righteous and strive to do the things that are right. So she doesn't have a life filled with anxiety about what she's worried about in the future, but she has a optimistic, confident trust in the goodness of God and in the course of wisdom that she's been taught to follow by the Bible. And that's a quality, of course, all of us, men and women. We need to have an optimistic, positive attitude about the future because we trust the Lord. In verse 26, she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her lips. So it talks about this excellent woman is also a Bible teacher. She's a wisdom teacher in dealing with other people that she comes in contact with, whether it's her children or her friends or relatives, people that she meets in business and in worship. She's got wisdom on her mouth, in her mouth, and she opens her mouth. She has something profitable to say that's true, that's in harmony with the true wisdom that we read about in the book of Proverbs and in God's word. So she speaks things that edify other people. That's wise words. They're going to build people up. They're going to be worth hearing and make their lives better, help them better able to distinguish between the good and bad and excellent and good. So she speaks these words not in an overbearing and a way that offends people or runs people off. But this woman, like Paul tells all of us, we need to be able to speak the word carefully and in the right way to anybody that we meet, have our words seasoned with grace. She speaks with kindness when she is delivering this wisdom to other people. It makes a difference how you present the truth. And this woman presents it in a kind way. When she opens her mouth, it's not with slander or gossip or ridicule or anything of that nature, but it's a kind message that is given to her children, to her servants, to whoever that she's trying to communicate. Doesn't have a domineering tone of voice when she's talking to people. So truly wise and able to make this wisdom acceptable to other people. In verse 27, she looks well to the way of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Well, this hard working woman is, this is a quality that's been brought up more than once in this poem about her diligence in looking out for her family. She's looking to their needs morally, religiously, looking out for their material needs. And we know the most important needs of all are spiritual, right? Those are the things that last forever, what you help your children with as far as their character and their faith is concerned. So she's looking well to the ways of her household and exercising the careful surveillance. It's not just the husband's job. She also sees it as her job to look out for all that are in the household. And she's ruling her house well, as we're told young women ought to be taught to do, taking care of the things of the home. She doesn't eat the bread of idleness. She's earned her bread by diligence that she eats, by hard labor and energy, being well occupied with her time. Verses 28 through 31. Again, each of these verses starts off with a different letter, but we don't have that there. It says about her success and happiness and She's a person worthy of praise. Shows what kind of this disciplined, godly, hard-working woman. What comes to you in the fruit in the end? You can see represented here. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her. So a person that is always looking out for your good, if you're a son or a daughter or a husband of such a woman, and she's trying to promote your welfare at all times and working hard and diligently, selflessly for you, that person deserves a lot of praise. They deserve every Mother's Day card they ever get or any other praise that is offered up to them. Just like this woman has talked about here, she should receive this kind of praise for the things that she does. So it says here, her children will appreciate her. They'll rise up and bless her. Make her happy is another way you might say that, with evidence of how much they appreciate her and love her because she sacrificed and looked out for them. And her husband also praises her. He knows best of all what her good qualities are. The people that are closest to her appreciate her the most. You know, it's kind of the opposite of what you read in history about some of the great, liberal revolutionaries and stuff. And they're going to fix society and they're going to help everybody else. And then you find out their children were neglected. Their wife was mistreated. It was the very opposite with the closest people to them. Maybe people in the party thought they were great. Well, that's the other way around with this worthy woman. The people closest to her think the most of her. The people that are in her home recognize her good qualities that she has. The husband says, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. So certainly it shows part of love and appreciation, and certainly being a good manager of your own household, you should praise those that do well and their good deeds that they do. He recognized got a jewel of a yes or no, how much she appreciates the good things that she does. Other women have done a lot, but them all. You do. There's no one else street and chase and enterprising and you are. And nobody is and exalted in his eyes. Then a bit of wisdom that is thrown in because people are deceived just by a pretty thing. Here of here tells us in this that charm is deceitful, is vain, but a woman shall be praised. All outer that the thing that you look at value. We have a media and industry that puts on your out what your face looks like and how you fix yourself and so forth and so on. But it tells us that is vain. It's not something that is says this charm is deceitful. The graceful exterior isn't an index about a person's true nature on the inside. It is vain. It's just a breath. It's literally what the word means there. It doesn't endure. Charms and beauty are both going to be destroyed as time goes by. These little things you see sometimes when you're on Facebook or some other site, or some of them are celebrities that didn't age so well or whatever. You click on it and it shows what they look like when there's not any of us age so well. You could put anybody's picture in there almost. I mean, there's some rare exceptions where, somebody at 20 and the age 60 or something, they still look pretty nice. But most of the time, there's a huge difference in the way they look. And it's not like they just did anything wrong, right? That's just time. The beauty doesn't last. That's just a rule that you can go by. And he says, so don't put all the emphasis on outward appearance. The inner man can be renewed day by day. These moral qualities can continue, but the outside, it is deceitful because it's going to fade away. So what is more important is that a person fear the Lord Isn't that where the book begins? With the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. The foundation of every great quality this woman has really flows out of the fact that she respects God, respects what his word says about her roles and responsibilities and her duties, and she strives to please the Lord in all that she does. And a person like that is going to get praise from God and from their children and from their husband and from other people as they see their well-ordered life on the fear of the Lord. She will be praised. So give her the produce of her hands and let her works praise her in the gate. So the final letter of the alphabet is used there, and she'll be praised by the whole community because of a lifelong work to do that which is right in the sight of God and man. She's been a hard worker, and she's met the challenge. So there's a challenge here to young women, to all of us, to try to be the most excellent person we can be in the sight of God by respecting him. It certainly has a sanctifying, hallowing picture of domestic life and how important it is. These ordinary duties we have every day are a way in which we worship God and exalt his glory in making us and teaching us. And it's a guide to young men on what they should seek in a wife. So a lot of things there for all of us to try to live up to. Well, to think about, Paul said, whatever's excellent. Well, we look at the excellent woman. Wasn't it worthwhile to look at that and think about it more deeply? There's certainly more there than I've brought out that you can study and meditate on yourself. This time we want to extend the Lord's invitation to those that are present. As we see an ideal picture like this, one